the minds and the wills of the people and their pocketbooks by promising them something that really was really a figment of their imagination.
Yeah. Okay, good point. And how'd your class go this week, Chris?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Joe. It went really good. We talked about the labor of Scorpio, which was Hercules had to destroy the Lernaean Hydra. And just a point of interest on that is he tried to kill it with his club, which was his trusty weapon of choice, and arrows, and nothing had an effect. And then he remembered that his teacher told him that he would defeat it by kneeling, by surrendering. He said, we rise by kneeling, we conquer by surrendering, we gain by giving up. And so he had to get on his knees and confront this 9-headed Hydra, which lived in the bogs and the swamps and the miasmas of his mind. And it was 18 feet tall. It was a huge monster. Anyway, he had to get underneath it and raise it up and to the light of his spiritual mind. And then when it was in the light of the soul, he destroyed it.
Yeah, that was a really good one. Yeah.
And what's interesting is how these labors parallel with a treatise on white magic. And you can see the parallel in this one, just this one line here on page 612, treatise on white magic. He says, any true aspirant knows that his spiritual progress can be gauged in terms of his freedom from this illusion and to his release into the clear light and the clear air and pure light of his spiritual consciousness. So, here the Tibetan is saying that our spiritual progress could be gauged by our ability to throw our problems and our illusions and our miasmas up into the light of our spiritual consciousness as well.
Okay, good summary. I'll have to include that in the white magic video there, Curtis.
Okie dokie.
Okay, any other comments or questions before we move on with the lesson? Okay, we'll send God Munson some energy here this week. Think about him. And where we left off on white magic, one of the assignment was we were talking about mental telepathy and tuning into each other. And so I'm wondering how many people remembered to try to do that. I know Stacy seemed to be really interested in doing it. Did you get any impression, Stacy?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Pamela and Jill and Michelina about Las Vegas, we were kind of doing it all week long. We were hitting up on exactly the same time to call each other and talk to each other about the right subject. Just a continuous thing. It goes on with me all the time because I look for it and I apply it. It's a tool that we all have access to. We just have to learn how to operate it, how to use it. It deals with vibrations and frequencies, and that's been a subject of mine for quite a while. And so I apply it all the time. I don't even have to keep notes to see if it happened. It's just a happening thing.
Well, this is one thing DK has been stressing in the recent lesson was that it's important we develop a sensitivity. First of all, as we begin our evolution, it's just each person for himself, and you just think of what's going to benefit you. And then eventually the person becomes a seeker. And as he becomes a seeker, he begins to tune in to his fellow men and women. And one of the first signs of that is when he's just can be sensitive to what other people's needs, and if they're in a conversation, be sensitive to the fact that, you know, he might, somebody else may have something important to say, and let him have a say and so on. That's something I have to pay attention to myself. And so eventually it goes from just paying attention to the outward signs to inward things. So pretty soon the person becomes sensitive enough that he begins to pick up things beyond the outward signs. In other words, let's say you hurt somebody's feelings and you ask them, well, about it, and they say, no, I'm fine, there's no problem. But maybe there is a problem, and he's not given any signs that his feelings are hurt. Okay, but you can pick up on that. Okay, if you can pick up on that with no outward signs, that's a good sign you're headed the right direction. This is one of the first extrasensory steps the disciple begins
What I
to
wanted
take
to,
is a sensitivity to other people's feelings. Yeah.
what I wanted to add was that these impressions that we call mental telepathy, that most people think, oh, this is a new breakthrough of understanding. We get these impressions all the time, every day, but people aren't aware of them. They don't want to sensitize their self to break into that realm where you're feeling these pingings of energy all the time. So if you pay attention to them and sharpen your focus and stay with them, after a while you'll pick up the habit of those, what they feel like and how they affect you, and you can correlate them together and pick up thoughts. That's what mental telepathy is energy that's being pulsated and you're picking it up.
Yeah, DK makes another important point along with what you wow. DK makes another important point along with what you're saying here, is that he says all of our thoughts don't originate with us, but we are living in a world of thought, and we often pick up thoughts from other people and other sources, and we think they originated with us when we just tuned into something and was broadcast to our mind, and we start thinking about it.
Well, that's the 100th monkey thing right there, Joe, is people
Yeah,
tune into what's going on another continent or another city, and then they start doing whatever it is, and then they think, well, it started with me, but it really didn't.
yeah,
There's
good point.
There's definitely a mental plane internet, whatever you want to call it, spiritual internet going already. You know, it's just a matter of just got to join. It's already there.
Yeah, and they say many inventions at the patent office are registered almost the same time, like the telephone was registered by not only Alexander Graham Bell, but by another guy, and I think Bell just beat him by like an hour.
By that much, yeah.
Or else the other guy would have got the credit for inventing the phone. So
there is a group that say that the Earth is surrounded by this, well, what they call one of the frequencies, the sea of mental garbage, and the other frequency, the ocean of love intelligence. According to you tuning your receiver in your mind, you can turn into garbage or intelligence.
yeah. Okay, anybody else get impressions that they want to share from the group, from the exercise that we assigned? Oh, Michelle has something. Okay, Michelle.
I just wanted to ask Curtis if he had a sore tummy. That's what I got. I just
Oh yeah, you did tell me that. Curtis did. She had a feeling he might have ate something wrong or something this week.
Yeah, thank you for sending that message over, Michelle. I might have, I'm eating everything half the time that comes my way and getting indigestion.
From my knowledge of Curtis, he has pretty much a cast iron stomach.
But I could have been, I'll tell you what, that's the advantage of being married, is you pick up energy from your spouse. And my wife's been really sick. In fact, she almost had to go to the hospital. So there was a lot of chaotic energy here that you might have picked up on coming from her through me. But I thought that was interesting that you were thinking about me and were sensitive that way. Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, you're welcome. I also picked up something from Rick about his creativity, his building, and also Lynn, butterflies. I have no idea what that means. She doesn't know what that means. Just seeing butterflies and being happy. And then
Now, who's seeing butterflies?
Lynn, I think her name is Lynn.
Lynn? Is she here? I don't think we have a Lynn.
Oh, sorry, Jill. Jill.
Oh, okay. Oh, Jill. Okay.
Jill.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I don't think she's here today, but maybe Stacy. Stacy's been in contact with her. And okay.
Yeah, she's her son came in town from California for a week, and he's going to be in there for a few more days. So they're doing the tour, and she's got a new grandbaby, so she's pretty excited. And her son's in town, and the mom and the brother, they're all getting together. So
Well, that's a good. A butterfly's a good symbol. That then.
Tell you that she would be. Yeah, so I think it goes right along with what you're saying. Yeah, very much so. I'll let her know that. Well, she'll probably watch the video.
Okay. Any other perceptions anybody picked up from other members?
On Thursday, JJ, I
What's
felt
that?
like
okay.
Stacy was tired Thursday morning. Is that right?
Can you remember Thursday, Stacy?
Thursday morning, what about it?
You were tired. That's all I got. You were tired.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. I was so tired I didn't think I was going to make it out of bed. And I didn't even want to get out of bed. All day
Really?
long I was tired. Absolutely. You did a good job on that one.
Good perception, Rolina. That's kind of a funny thing to pick up on, though. But you never know what you pick up. Okay, real good. Okay, any other perceptions that anybody wants to share? Okay, well, yeah, I think when members of the group going through my mind all the time, so I think that's the same with a lot of the other members here, that you just maybe during the day you just think about different people in the group and what great entities they all are, and what they might be in need of and things like that. So that's all good that we're thinking about each other, and this is one of the things that Tibetan stresses, that the new group of world servers needs to develop, that empathy and that feeling of connection. That feeling of connection is really important to our spiritual evolution. One of the things we left off talking about is the astral world. He talks about the fire and waters meet. Let me read this rule again. We're on the fires approach a shadow, yet burn it not. The fire sheath is completed. Let the magician chant the words that blend fire and water. Now, the fires he talks about, there's three fires. There's the electric fire, which is the fire of pure spirit. There's the solar fire, which is the fire of the solar angel or the world of soul. And then there's regular fire, which is fire by friction, which is the fires of the physical etheric world that enliven us and give us physical life. So we have these three fires. And so he talks about blending fire and water, and what he means by that is uh, the fires, the three fires come, either one or two or three of the fires come and they blend with water, which is the astral world, or they blend with the astral world. And the fires coming down into the astral world creates kind of a steam and it produces a fog, and it makes everything very hard to see. And this is what happens with kind of general humanity. We have fire and water blended, and it's producing a lot of illusion. And the astral world itself, he talks about being pure illusion, and it's created by the mind and the lower fires intertwining to produce kind of a dream state almost, and a dream state that is not real to a higher angle of vision. He says, to a master, the astral world doesn't even exist. No, the astral world creates the lower emotions. And it's important that the disciple differentiate between the lower emotions and the higher emotions, because the lower emotions produce that which is not even real from a higher point of view, but it's really real to us. Now, the lower emotions are things connected with a desire nature, the desire related to wanting things which are form. Okay, so our physical body is the main form connected with our desires. We want to keep our physical body in good shape and do things to enhance it and to give our physical self food, shelter, entertainment. All these things are all connected to the astral self. The lower emotions are connected to the astral self. So here's a question. They say when a person becomes a master, the astral world actually becomes pretty much non-existent. Does this mean that a master like, say, the Christ or DK or somebody, if we were to meet them, that they would have no feelings? What would their
No,
What would their What would their feeling nature be like, or would they even have feelings? What do you think, Curtis?
yeah, they would have feelings. They just wouldn't be. They wouldn't be attached or gravitated to the lower astral world. They would rise above it to the mountaintop. They would
Right.
ascend like Capricorn, and they would rise above it, but they would still feel sensation. As long as they're in a physical form, they would experience
Right.
sensation.
Now we have the various planes of physical, and then the next step up is the emotional astral. Then the next is the mental. Now the highest correspondent to the astral is the one above the mental, and what's that?
With the intuitive,
Right, the intuitive or Buddhic plane. Okay, so this higher plane is where the masters center their feeling on.
right.
So they still have feelings, but their attention is on the intuitive plane rather than the astral plane. And so the intuitive plane is where the real feelings are. And the astral plane is merely a lower projection of the higher feelings. Okay, so we have in this world of illusion, we're swimming around in these lower feelings. Example of lower feelings is, for instance, hurt feelings. Let's say I said something that hurt Ed's feelings here, for instance. And
I don't think that's possible, but maybe.
okay, if Ed takes offense at something I say, well, that's an astral thing. Whereas a master, we're not saying Ed isn't a master. He might be a master in disguise here, but but a master, if you say something that would normally offend a regular guy, and you were to say it to a master, he would just look at it dispassionately, and his feelings wouldn't be hurt at all. He may think, oh, that was kind of a crazy thing for that guy to say, but he wouldn't take personal offense about it. I find it interesting that Jesus offended so many people. He actually said one time, "Blessed is he who is not offended in me." Okay, so even though he was, the Lord of light and love and everything, and we think he was just really a pleasant guy to be around, he offended a lot of people. And the truth does offend a lot of people, because if people are centered in the lower emotions, they're centered where truth is reversed. So you unreverse the truth and you give people the pure truth, a lot of them will take offense. They do not want to hear what the pure truth is. They want to hear a distorted version of the truth that sets in well with their lower emotional feelings.
If you try to offend a master, you might find the joke being on you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he said, what do you mean by that, Rick? Tell me more.
Okay, he says the work of the masters then is to dispel the illusion of the mist of the astral plane. Because of this powerful illusion, the beginning magicians use the power of the soul and the astral plane and the head in the wrong direction until the illusion is seen. In the beginning, the pull of the astral is stronger than the kingdom of God. Okay, so it makes an interesting statement then that the fires and the waters blending produces an impulse towards spirit, even though, but the impulse isn't often in the wrong direction. But there's one benefit of going the wrong direction. If you're going to, say, the grocery store and you take a wrong turn and you wind up at the hardware store, you realize something. You realize, well, I must have went the wrong direction. So you've got an important truth that's registered in your brain. You went the wrong direction, so you back up and you try to figure out, now where did I take the wrong turn? And then you take another turn until you figure out which way is the right direction. And this is what happens to us when the fires and waters blend. We start trying to find our way home, and we often go the wrong direction. But because we're a true seeker, when we hit a dead end, we acknowledge it's a dead end, and then we back up and we take another direction, and we keep going different directions until we see a little point of light out there that signals us that we've done something right. And then we keep doing that thing that's right until we eventually dispel this astral zone, so it no longer exists. And this is what we have to do. But first of all, we're going to make a lot of mistakes, it says. And so does everybody identify with making a lot of mistakes? Who hasn't made any mistakes so far in their life? I don't see any hands going up. Okay.
Life is like a maze or a labyrinth. It's full of a lot of dead ends, but like you say, you make a turn and go in another direction.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you end up by mistake at the hardware store and then realize, hey, there are things I need at the hardware store.
Yeah, that's true.
Really
that's a good point.
So.
Yeah, everything has value. On the other hand, the person may wind up at the hardware store and curse himself for going the wrong direction, then go to the grocery store. Then when he's at the grocery store, he'll realize, I needed something at the hardware store after all. I got to go back there.
So there really are no mistakes.
Yeah. In a holistic way of looking at it, there are no mistakes, because everything is a learning opportunity. Okay, the rules, therefore, he says, end with a statement that the magician chants the words about blending fire and water. He says, but these rules apply to the aspirant. The wording he says for initiates is more like this: Let the initiate sound the note that unifies the fires. Okay. So for the aspirant, he blends fire and water. In other words, he brings the fires of the spirit down into the emotional level so that he gets, we get, the advantage of our emotions is our desire nature gives us impetus to move forward and to get things done and get things moving. So the fires of the spirit come down into the emotional level and propel us to start searching. Okay. And this is what where the aspirant is. He says, but as he advances, then he sounds the note that unifies the fires. Okay, there's 3 fires, remember. There's the fire of the spirit, the fire of the soul, and then the fire of matter, which is the fire by friction. And unify these fires. So eventually we will be able to say with Jesus, I and my Father are one. Okay, so Jesus unified. The Father represents the pure fires of spirit, and the Christ himself represents the pure fires of the higher self or the soul. And then the personality represents the fire by friction. So these 3 parts of ourselves, for the advanced disciple, we need to bring them together so that we can become one. So we can then declare with Jesus, I and pure spirit, the Father, are one. And so this is what the direction we all need to take. He says, a step in this direction is that the disciple must withdraw consciousness from the astral plane and focus on the mental. So that's an interesting statement, to withdraw consciousness from in other words, from the lower emotions. Let's say somebody hurts our feelings. They say something that really hurts our feelings, rubs us the wrong way. If we allow that to happen, then we've still got our attention on the lower feelings. And this hurting the feelings is really kind of the ultimate test, because this is something that a lot of people have difficulty in moving beyond, because we think, well, you know, that's so and so, he said this and I didn't like what he said about ABC. Okay, so this happens very often, even among many fairly advanced students have problems with their feelings being hurt over something somebody says. Okay, so energy follows thought. So we have to take our thought away from these lower emotions and put them on the higher. When they're on the higher planes, then it's as if those lower emotions don't exist. So somebody insults your mother, says you have an ugly mother or whatever, you know, well, or insults you, or says you say you painted a portrait or something, and they say, boy, that looks horrible. You don't let that affect you. You just think, well, that's his opinion. Okay, and that's that. So the person has to move beyond being negatively affected emotionally by what people say. And the Course in Miracles is really good at pointing out the power of grievance, how people carry grievances. And this power to overcome grievance is a very strong key in dominating the astral world, so it doesn't have power to control us. But dominating the astral world is a very powerful step in taking back the power that belongs to you spiritually.
When you look at the feelings like fear, worry, guilt, doubt, these are all projections from the personality, because the personality knows that its days are limited, its days of control are limited. But on the level of the soul doesn't experience fear because it's an immortal part of your being. So it's not worried about anything. So you can ask yourself, if I'm worried, at what level am I operating? A personality level or a soul level?
Yeah.
And that's how I rise above a lot of my negative feelings. Is, if I rise to the level of the soul, I won't experience a grievance, or because we see each other as perfected beings on that level. So
Yeah. The most important thing to overcome
and
is,
also,
yeah.
I was going to say that whenever you have feelings, say of resentment to somebody, you can reverse that polarity into thinking of feelings of gratitude towards them, and maybe gratitude for that resentment that they gave you because you learned something out of it, because it was a lesson for you to learn. So the object is, what is the reverse polarity of each situation that's, let's say, a lower vibration for you? What you want to do is find that the opposite polarity and change your mental polarity. It changes everything down the line. So resentment, you could change that with the polarity of gratitude.
Yeah, and
understanding that polarity differentials.
in alignment with that, Stacy, the Course in Miracles has a very interesting lesson. It says, it says there's one person in particular in your life that you see negatively, that you see like as aggravating or a problem, a thorn in your side. And he says, you know who this person is. Now, for a lot of people, it may be their spouse, or maybe even their neighbor, or their family member, or just a friend. But there's somebody in most everybody's life that is an aggravation, okay? And then it makes this really profound statement. It says, this person is your savior. And he's your savior because when you learn to see the Christ in this person, then you are saved. In other words, you're saved because you can see the Christ in everybody then. And when you see the Christ in everybody, then you raise your consciousness up to the level of Christ himself, of the Christ consciousness. So I thought that was one of the most interesting things taught in the Course in Miracles, that the most aggravating guy in your life is really your savior. Because when you take the most aggravating person in your life and you can see the Christ in him and not let him have any negative influence over you at all, then you achieve a degree of deliverance or salvation, so to speak. Okay. Easy to say, difficult to accomplish oftentimes, because there are some pretty aggravating people out there, and that maybe try our patience, but it can be done. He says there's an interesting and ancient proclamation found in the archives of the Adepts. He keeps talking about these archives of the Adepts. It would be interesting, wouldn't it, to be able to spend a couple of weeks going through those archives that DK has access to.
The old commentary.
Yeah. He says, this covers some of the stages in the magical work, couched, of course, in symbolic form. And I can't really improve upon this, so I'm going to read this quote over from these ancient archives, and we'll discuss it a bit as we go through it. He says, let the magician stand within the great world sea. Let him immerse himself in the water, and there let him stand his ground. Let him look down into the watery depths. Nothing is seen in form correct. Nothing appears but water. Beneath his feet it moves around him, above his head. He cannot speak, he cannot see. Truth disappears in water. Now remember, water is a symbol of emotion. So the entity, which is us, which is pure spirit, we descend into this reality, and we descend into the world of emotion, of water, and nothing we see is correct. Watch these political arguments that happen on TV and everything, and you see a lot of illusion on both sides. As you see illusion everywhere, where people start talking politics these days. It's like, say, when I was a kid, it was religion seemed to be where the illusion was. Now it's politics more is where illusion really is centered. But truth disappears in pure emotion, in other words. Then he says, let the magician stand within the stream. This is the next step up. Instead of just still water, we have a stream. Around him, water flows. His feet stand firm on land and rock. But all the forms he sees are lost in the gray immensity of mist. The water is around his neck, but feet on the rock, head in the air, he maketh progress. So instead of just being immersed in water completely, the water, everything begins to get in motion. And as it's in motion, he's able to get a little bit of air and see a little bit of actual truth. He says, all is distorted still. He knows, he stands, but where to go and how to go, he knows not, nor understands. He sounds words of magic, but muffed, dimmed, and lost, the mist returns them to him, and no true note sounds forth. Around him there are many sounds, many forms, which swallow up his sound. Okay, so in other words, he gets a slight perfection of some truth out there, but still the emotion is in motion even more than ever, and that emotion makes truth really hard to see. He's still not seeing the truth. He knows there's something out there. Okay, the next sentence, next paragraph. Let the magician stand in the watery midst, free of the running stream. Some outlines dim appear. He sees a little distance on the path. Flickers of light break through the clouds of mist and fog. He hears his voice. Its note is clearer and more true. The forms of other pilgrims can be seen. Behind him is the sea. Beneath his feet is seen the stream. Around him mist and fog. Above his head no sky is seen nor sun. Okay, he still can't see the sun. In other words, that's a symbol of the soul. He knows it's there, but he can't quite contact it yet. He's free from the stream. In other words, the moving emotions, strong feelings that's going on around him. He's starting to distance himself from the emotional world, but he's centering himself more on mind, but he's still not sure of what the truth is. Next stage, let the magician stand on higher ground, but in the rain. The drops pour down upon him. The thunder breaks. The lightning flashes in the sky. But as the rain pours down, it dissipates the mist. It washes clean the form and clears the atmosphere. He talks about the rain cloud of knowable things. So the rain pours down. He has pure knowledge and spirit pour down upon him, and it begins to dissipate this astral negative energy that is around him. So things are starting to get a little bit clearer for him now. Thus the forms are seen, the sounds are heard, though dim as yet, for loud the thunder roars, and heavy is the sound of falling rain. But now the sky is seen. The sun breaks forth, and in between the drifting clouds, expanses of blue heaven cheer the tired eyes of the disciple on. Okay, so as he progresses, as he absorbs knowledge, the son, in other words, the soul, begins to be seen. He begins to feel communication. He gets the still small voice. He begins to register that message from the soul, or in other words, he begins to see the sun. And the
Joe?
magicians, yeah.
That would correspond in the labors of Hercules to Sagittarius, where he gets rid of all of the clouds that cover the soul, and he's like an archer. He's going to shoot straight into the heart of the sun. So that's the kind of the same place that you're talking about there,
Yeah,
Sagittarius.
good
Mystical.
point. Then he says, let the magician stand upon the mountaintop. Beneath him, in the valleys and the plains, water and streams and clouds are seen. Above him is the blue of heaven, the radiance of the rising sun, the pureness of the mountain air. Each sound is clear. The silence speaks with sound. Interesting statement. So he's standing on the mountaintop and he sees all this thing. He sees the valleys and the plains and the waters and the streams and the clouds. He sees all the illusions of humanity, but he's not seeing it by being in the lower plane. He's seeing it by rising his consciousness higher. And then he's able to see all these things as they really are. Then come the highly significant phrases, which give the picture of the consummation. He says, let the magician stand within the sun, looking from thence upon the ball of the earth, from that high point of peace serene. Let him sound forth the words that will create the forms, build the worlds and universes, and give his life so that which he is to that which he has made. Let him project the forms created on the mountaintop in such a way that they can cleave the clouds which circle around the ball of earth and carry light and power. These shall dispel the veil of forms which hide the true abode of earth from the eye of the beholder. It's pretty deep. But the key thing I think we need to absorb here is this sentence here. It says, let him give his life to that which he has made. In other words, we're duplicating what God himself has done. The one great life, give his essence to make you. Okay, so we are a creation of God, so to speak, in the fact that we are part of the life of God, and God's life flows through us to give a creation reality. Okay, we have to do the same thing. Take that which we have created and let our life essence flow into it, and this will give life to that which we desire to create. So that's a very profound thought when you really look at it. So I think that last one pretty much applies to a master or higher. That's when you get to a very elevated point that you can do that. But I think that's one of the keys of creation, is to give your life to it. You can kind of see this with a business. Somebody creates a business, and the successful business owner just pours his life essence into that to try to make it successful. Say a creative artist, the same way, writes a song. He puts something of his own life essence into that song, or into that band, or into that piece of artwork, to give it life. When he does that, then other people will look at it or listen to it or read it, and they will feel a life essence coming from it. If you ever read a really good book that you just can't hardly put down, you know that the author had put part of his own soul into that work. And this is what we must do as white magicians. We must, if we want to be successful creators, put ourselves, our life essence, into that which we create. And the great part is we're not diminished by doing it. It's not like if you pour your life essence into something, then you lose life essence. Because you have an eternal supply. There's an eternal supply of life coming from our source, which is God. And so in the process of creation, there's no diminishing. There's always eternal supply. Okay.
Along with that, Joe, that's the labor of Aquarius, which you are. He's the water bearer. He has his cup runneth over. It has an endless supply. And of Aquarius, it says, water of life am I, poured forth for my creation.
Good point.
Yeah, so it just really corresponds to what you're saying there. We just continuously pour an endless supply of energy into whatever it is we're creating until it becomes real.
Yeah, when I've given lessons on healing, I tell people, now when you seek to to heal a brother or sister, don't see the energies coming from you. Because if you see it coming from you, then you will actually lose energy. And some healers are very depleted of energy because they have this attitude that it's coming from them. And the energy may actually help the patient, but it hurts the healer. And some healers actually develop the disease of the people they're trying to heal. And the mistake they make is they see energy, they see it coming from them. And what the healer must see is the energy coming through him, an eternal supply that he's linked to an eternal supply. And it's completely unlimited, and he needs to see energy going through him. So when energy goes from him, it's also coming into him at the same time. And this is what the successful healer must, this attitude that he must develop, so that he can become a source of help to those he seeks to assist.
Leave the channel more than anything.
Yeah, the channel is a good word there. To be a true white magician, he says, a student must discover that the astral plane is illusion and transcend it. He cannot give the words that blend, but the disciples must ascertain them from their own souls. So there are certain words, and remember when he speaks about words, he's not always referring to a word as we understand it, but it's often a principle. He also refers to a word or a concept. So there's certain concepts that come from the soul that are important for us to ascertain. And when they're ascertained, then they will register with us, and we will then, he says, share them as we are guided by the soul. And but many of these concepts that he's teaching here, he says are not for everybody. But when the true white magician will share when he feels that the receiver is ready to be shared with. Okay, our next section is on a call to service, which we'll discuss next week. And before we sign off, do you any comments or questions that anybody wants to bring up?
There's no such thing as water.
Yeah,
Yeah, the book of Revelation speaks symbolically about the redeemed world. There will be no more sea. And by that, it means there will be no more astral world, no more lower emotions. But there will always
I wanted to
be
ask Relina.
regular water.
I
Yeah?
wanted to ask Relina. I wanted to ask Relina, what exactly did you feel, or how did you come about picking up that I was so down on energy Thursday?
Well, most of the week had gone by and I'd forgotten about our little assignment. I picked up the note that I wrote it on, and so I just paused for a moment and kind of just relaxed and let my mind open, and all of a sudden there you were, and then I got the word tired, just like that.
It's funny. Well, did you try
Pretty
to send
good.
him a little, did you try to send him a little energy, Relina?
Yeah, I did.
Well, good for you.
That's
Yeah,
all
what
sent Stacy some energy.
yeah. Well, speaking of energy, let the energy flow through everybody for the next week. And I expect everybody to show up 10 o'clock next Sunday, all energized and ready to participate.
Yay. I'm with you on that, Brother JJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't a full moon tonight or sometime today?
Oh, I haven't kept track.
It's a full moon tonight.
Is it full moon tonight?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't paying attention. I should have had that marked. Okay, well, if remember on the
Happy
time of the
full moon.
on the time of the full moon, do the great invocation and with a moment of silence, see what you pick up.
Good idea.
We will see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.